Welcome to the Loud Nerd in the Basement podcast, a spin-off of the Substack Loud Nerd in the Basement, your home for authentic news and reviews on nerdy movies and TV shows. Now, time for the Friday News Roundup. Well, welcome back to another Friday News edition of the Loud Nerd in the Basement podcast. I'm your host, Adam Zolnai. As always, thank you so much for listening, however you may be listening. As always, this podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Substack, and YouTube. I highly suggest subscribing to the YouTube channel because I've been putting out about 3 shorts a week, and these are just little fun side tangents and another way for me to interact with you guys, and I've been enjoying it, and I hope you've been enjoying it as well. Unfortunately, YouTube is sometimes finicky of how I'm able to upload those, but I've figured out a process on how to do that. Thanks, Google. Your billion-dollar company can't figure out how to upload a 50-second video. But I digress. As always, thank you so much for supporting the show, whether it's through a free subscription on Substack, just subscribing on any podcast outlet or on YouTube, or if you're a paid member, I really appreciate your support. It helps me be able to do this and pursue this full time, and I'm loving it, and it's giving me the ability to really go full throttle with this thing. So I'm very thankful for those of you who've upgraded to the paid tier. And if you want to become a paid member, it's really simple. All you gotta do is go to Substack, click on the subscription button, and choose a paid tier that you want. You can do either $6 a month or $50 a year. Nothing too expensive. That's less than a subscription service would cost for an entire year, and about what a cup of coffee would cost depending on where you are, maybe even more, especially if you get the really fancy coffees. So not asking for a lot of money here, but it does help me be able to do this for you guys and really go see movies. I eventually want to upgrade my mic to get better podcasting equipment, but with that paid tier, you get extra perks and full access to the Loud Nerd in the Basement experience. With that paid tier, you get to ask me questions that I'll answer here on the podcast. I have one today that was a real mind bender, and it had me thinking a lot, and I love those types of questions. Always super fun to think up of creative answers to those. You guys are really good about getting real creative with those questions. I love it. And you also get access to spoiler articles for all major new blockbusters. I have one for Supergirl that came out earlier this month. I'm going to obviously have one for Spider-Man when that comes out. So you'll be able to hear my entire thoughts on those as opposed to just the spoiler-free review that I drop. So if I had an issue with something, but I can't say it in the spoiler-free review, you get to hear my full thoughts on it in the spoiler article, but that's only if you're a paid member. And also, you get access to monthly rewind reviews. I released one earlier this month about the movie Mystery Men from 1999 starring Ben Stiller. I had never even heard of it, but one of my paid subscribers asked me to review it, and I did, and I'm glad he told me about it because it was an enjoyable experience. It was kind of fun reviewing an old movie having never seen it. It was a fun experience to do that. And then I actually have another movie from the 90s that I'll be doing next month that was requested by another paid subscriber. So if you want access to those and want to ask me to review a certain movie, all you got to do is become a paid member. And again, I really appreciate your support, whether you're a free subscriber or paid subscriber. You guys are awesome. I love that I get to do this, and I have no plans on stopping at all. So, but with that, we got a lot of news to talk about this week, and especially because a certain trailer dropped, but I'm not going to start out with that. I'm going to make you wait. Patience is a virtue. First, we're going to start off with some sad news, but then again, we'll ramp back up to some happy news. But first bit of bad news, I would say, that really only bad news that I have this week, thank God. The God of War show, filming for Amazon right now, has been put on hold because the guy who's playing Kratos, Ryan Hurst, tore his bicep while filming a stunt, forcing them to stop, and then they're going to have to recast him. Because, for those of you who don't know, I'm more familiar with this just because of following sports. I follow American football and hockey and baseball, so I'm familiar with injuries like this. They take a long time to recover, and especially in a TV show that has a child actor, you can't afford to wait because kids grow up really fast. I know I have two of them, and gosh, they sprout up overnight, it seems like. So, as heartless as this sounds, I get it. It sucks for Ryan Hurst because he's a good actor, and I think he would have made a good Kratos. He was in Nolan's Odyssey in a small part, and he was great in that. So it just really sucks that this is how you lose your job, is by basically hurting yourself while working. And again, I don't know. Obviously, we don't know what the stunt was, but I'd have to think it's something he wanted to do, or maybe they told him to do it. Again, I don't have access to the production, but it sucks that you lose your job that way. So I feel really bad for Ryan Hurst. I hope he has a speedy recovery and is able to get back out there, because it really felt like his career was taking off between being in God of War Ragnarok as Thor in the game and then becoming Kratos in the show, while also being in a Christopher Nolan movie. I mean, that's when you know you're making, is when you get a role in a Christopher Nolan film. So it stinks for him, and also I feel like it really puts the studio in a bind, because that's not an easy role to cast, because not only do you need to make sure you have someone who can play Kratos, who can act really well, especially with body language and facial and expressions, because Kratos does not talk a lot in the games. So you need to have someone who can really inflect when they say the few words that they have to say, and then also just with their body language be able to communicate to the audience how that character is feeling or acting, and then also just have the physical size to look like Kratos. I mean, I'm sure Ryan Hurst got bulked up really big for this role, and he was already a big guy. So you're gonna have to find an actor that fills all that criteria. That's not an easy thing. So I'm interested to see how they approach this, and who they get, because again, you can't cast too old because you want them to be able to do the stunts, but you also again need someone who can bulk up and maintain that physical presence. So I do not envy the casting director that has to recast, and it sounds like they were about 4 episodes into the show, so they're going to have to reshoot a lot of it too, which, I mean, it's Amazon, so they have just endless wells of money to burn through. So it's not like they can't afford it, but I mean, it still stinks for everyone involved, because it's one of those things where it's not even like, oh man, this isn't working, we're gonna have to let you go. It's like, hey, you're doing a great job, but we can't wait 2 years for you to recover and be able to bulk back up and be able to move again. And even with these kinds of injuries, you're never really fully the same depending on the severity of the tears. So just a stinky situation all around, and I hope Ryan Hurst recovers and is able to get back out there sooner rather than later. But on to much bigger and well, I wouldn't say bigger, but happier news. Avengers Doomsday finally got his trailer. Surprised everyone, including myself, a little bit. It was kind of shadow dropped on Monday. I thought that it would be revealed at San Diego Comic-Con this weekend, so I figured there was a trailer coming this week. I just didn't think it would be on Monday, but it makes sense because they were also putting pre-orders for tickets up, so it's like, well, we gotta show something before we ask people to buy a ticket for this. But overall, I have a mixed reaction to the trailer. Like, on the one hand, as just a bottom level comic book nerd, just seeing all these characters on screens, finally getting to see the X-Men, Fantastic Four, and what's left of the Avengers interact with each other. On a base level, I can't deny it's cool. Like, just turning my brain off, not thinking about anything, just being like, oh yeah, there's Professor X, talking with Magneto, and then you have Cyclops and Mystique fighting. You have Mystique fighting Yelena Belova, Black Widow. You have Channing Tatum's Gambit fighting with Shang-Chi. You have the Fantastic Four talking to Thor and Ant-Man. It's just like, there is an element of that where it's just like, I can't deny that on a base level, that's cool. So it's just like, wow, yeah, that's cool. But I have to say my hype levels are just not where they were at when, like, the first Infinity War teaser dropped. Like, when that dropped, I watched that thing like 5 times just in one day. And here I was just kind of watching it. I was like, eh. Like, Doom looks good. I think Robert Downey Jr.'s voice sounds fine. Like, if I didn't know it was Robert Downey Jr., I don't think I would recognize him. But because I'm familiar enough with Robert Downey Jr., I can hear a little bit of his voice in there, but it's still a good voice. It's just I know it's Robert Downey Jr., so I'm looking for RDJ in that performance. But the costume looks great. But again, I just don't have that hype. I it's not there because again, there was no build up to Doom. We don't really have any idea what his motivation is. We see what looks to be incursions happening. We see a big fireball outside the X Mansion, which I think is the incursion, and I do believe the X-Men die. Most of the X-Men die by the end of the first act of this movie to just establish the stakes. And then, obviously, we see Doom stop Thor's axe, Stormbreaker, which, again, base level cool, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know anything about this Doctor Doom. We have not been introduced to him at all. I don't know what his motivation is. So I don't. So when Thor's talking about how scary he is, I'm like, well, you're breaking the first rule of storytelling, which is show, don't tell. You you can't have just a character be like, oh man, he's scary. Like the reason Thanos worked is because you had we had characters reacting to people who were just associated with him. Like in Guardians, people hate Gamora because of what Thanos did. They're like, oh, you're Thanos' daughter? I'm going to kill you, kind of a thing. Like that alone shows you how serious of a guy Thanos is and how dangerous he is. You know, we have little clips here and there of him, you know, talking about wanting to get the Infinity Stones, and like he calls Ronan the Accuser, the villain for Guardians of the Galaxy 1, boy. Like that's how dismissive he is of Ronan because how much he elevates himself above that villain. We haven't gotten any of that with Doom. We got a couple of nods to Ledveria in the Fantastic Four movie. And the after credits scene, we'd see him hunched over Franklin Richards. That's it. We don't have any idea what he's doing, what his motivation is, why he's here. And he talks about, you know, something's coming, and I guess my bet is he's talking about the incursions. We did get a teaser poster for this as well, which shows Doom facing the camera from the back, so we only get his back, looking at a picture of what appears to be a mother and son, which is hinting, my guess is, at Doom's biggest motivation being trying to save his mother's soul from hell, basically. But again, none of that's been established. None of that has been hinted at even. And so it just I can't be like, oh my gosh, they're fighting Doom. And again, some of these characters too in the trailer, like Shang-Chi, we haven't seen since 2021. And like the incursions were not built up. They were name dropped briefly in Doctor Strange 2, which came out in 2022, so 4 years ago. So it's just hard for me to get hyped when there really wasn't momentum built up to this the way there was with Infinity War. And like even Age of Ultron, it's like, yeah, obviously we didn't build up to didn't build up to Ultron, but we got all the other Avengers characters to that point where it's like, okay, Captain America they're fighting Hydra because we found out that Hydra still exists and Shield's gone, so the Avengers are the only protectors now of the world. We know that Tony is suffering severe PTSD from the first Avengers movie. He knows the aliens are coming back. So we have the motivation for him creating Ultron right there. You know, we have Cap not trusting authority the way he did in Avengers 1. We have, you know, Thor starting to realize that something funky's going on, that Infinity Stones are starting to appear. Like there's stuff there that built up to Age of Ultron, even if it didn't build up to the villain itself. But here it's like, I like again, other than the Thunderbolts / New Avengers, like who's an adventurer in this movie? Because like we see Shuri, Black Panther, but the last time we saw her, she just, you know, went off. I can't remember where it was to mourn T'Challa. M'Baku's now the leader of Wakanda. The Fantastic Four, I don't know. We don't know how, or well, we know how. They're smart enough to figure it out, but we don't know why they're here. Like, is Doom from their planet, and so they're trying to stop him, but so they chase him to the main MCU. Like, there's that probability. Like, again, I don't think Doom is causing the incursions, but is he trying to stop them, or is he trying to harness the energy they're unleashing to find his mom? Like, I just don't know how in a 2 hour and 45 minute movie you're going to be able to really properly set up Doom and really explain him. Like, the reason Thanos worked in Infinity War is because we didn't need to build up any of the characters. Like, we already knew, the Avengers really well. We knew the Guardians really well. So we didn't need to worry about that. The movie could focus on just, here's Thanos, here's what he's about, and here's why he's such a threat. But we don't have that. There's just so many moving parts and everything. And it's like, even when it also doesn't help that we knew so much about this going in. Like, we knew Chris Evans was returning as Captain America. So that reveal, it's like, well, that's cool, but you already told me that, 6 months ago in the first teaser that you released for this movie. So it just feels like they're very much like, please, please. It feels desperate. It's like, please, please, come see our movie. Like, am I excited? Yes. I'm more excited for Dune Part 3, and I still think Dune is going to do better than this movie. I just do, and I hate to say that, but I just think people are going to see Dune because that's the conclusion of a trilogy that's been built up. Whereas with Doomsday, again, it's like, what is the required watching for Doomsday? Is either A, you're going to have to say, well, it's watch all seasons 1 and 2 of Loki, which was a good show. I liked it. You're going to have to watch Shang-Chi, Thunderbolts, Captain America 4, Fantastic Four. Let's see what else. I don't know if I said Shang-Chi already. Um, Man, what else? Maybe Spider-Man, Doctor Strange 2, and Doctor Strange isn't even in this movie. So it's like you have all this. I don't know. It's just, for me, I'm excited, but again, it just, a lot of this trailer felt desperate. Like seeing Shang-Chi fight Gambit. Like, I didn't like Tatum's Gambit that much. Like, it worked fine as a joke in Deadpool and Wolverine, but like, I wouldn't say that he's like my go-to pick for Gambit. So it's one of those things where I'm excited. It looks good. Like, again, visually it looks cool. And if this is a fun movie, bottom line, I will be happy. But just for me, it's one of those things where it just doesn't. They're trying to evoke Infinity War, and I'm just not getting that feeling. So I'm hoping I'm wrong. Again, I would love to be wrong. I hope that I go into Avengers Doomsday and I'm like, holy crud, this is amazing. I can't wait to tell people about it. They haven't earned that excitement from me yet. I'm excited, but I'm not like, just, oh my gosh, Thanos, or no, Doctor Doom, like all that. I think part of that is because they've shown so much of this already that it's diminished whatever reveals they actually have. And my advice to them would be, and I know I'm just some rando on the internet, but I think for the next trailer, no Avengers in it at all. It should be all about Doctor Doom, and then maybe the last frame of the trailer is him facing off against the Avengers. Like, they need to start building him up now, and just having Thor tell us that he's scary is not going to do it. So that's my thoughts on the trailer. Again, not a bad trailer. It's just they haven't earned the hype for me yet. And I hope that they get to that point, because I want to be like super duper excited. I'm going to see it opening weekend mainly to write a review on it, but again, it's not one of those, like, it's not like Spider-Man Brand New Day where, like, oh my gosh, I need to see this movie. It very much is like, okay, I'm excited for this movie, but I'm not going to say that I'm like, circling the date on the calendar and like, I gotta pre-order my tickets now. Like, yeah. We'll see. Again, I hope the more I see of this, the more I'm excited. But I think, again, it's hurt themselves by revealing so much about this movie. Like, maybe if I didn't know that was Robert Downey Jr., maybe if I didn't know Chris Evans was in it, I'd be a little bit more pumped. But most of it just feels like, yeah, you told me about this already. I think that, and that may be what it is really. It's like, it's just, a lot of it's like, well, I already knew about all this. Like, I already knew that the X-Men, Fox X-Men were going to be in it. I already knew that Doctor Doom is played by Robert Downey Jr. I know that Chris Evans is coming back. So it's like you having the trailer be like, "Oh, Chris Evans." It's like, "Yeah, I knew about this 6 months ago, man." So, we'll see. But that's not all the MCU news that we have to talk about. Kevin Feige's been talking a bit about some things, and one of the things he talked about was whether or not the MCU is going to reboot with Secret Wars. And he said, when asked about it, he said, quote, "No, but I look at the comics as I always do in terms of our storytelling. In both the Secret Wars, but particularly the Hickman Secret Wars from 10 years ago, there's a nice roadmap to where we can go." And he said, "Reboot is a scary word. Reboot can mean lots of things to lots of people. Reset, singular timeline, we're thinking along those lines. X-Men is where that will happen next." So that is interesting, and I mean it makes sense because we already knew that the Jonathan Hickman comic for Secret Wars was what they were looking at, and in that comic, for those of you who don't know, it follows a similar story structure that the movies are a little bit, although the comic built up the incursions a lot more than the movies did. In the comics, you find out that the universes are collapsing. So, like, all these alternate universes are collapsing, and the Avengers have to make the hard decision of kind of preemptively destroying those worlds so the incursion doesn't get there. Meanwhile, Doctor Doom learns about what they're doing and basically harnesses that energy and becomes God Emperor Doom, and recreates reality in his own image and makes these little things called battle worlds where he traps different Avengers and heroes in different pocket dimensions almost, and basically they rise up and defeat him, which makes sense. But the whole thing of that is originally Hickman was using it as a roadmap for Marvel Comics to full on reboot. Well, Marvel editorial got cold feet and decided to not reboot, but use it to change certain things within Marvel Comics continuity. So, like, all of a sudden, Miles Morales was now part of the Ultimate Universe. He was part of the main 616 comic universe. It was like, oh, he's always been there. And, like, some writers tinkered with, like, no, he remembers the Ultimate Universe, and some writers didn't. It was kind of just depending on who wrote him at the time. But you had things like, oh, Captain America looks a lot more like the movie Captain America, and Nick Fury had a son called Nick Fury Jr. who happens to look like Samuel L. Jackson, and I mean some other things that I can't remember off the top of my head, but basically they kind of used it to change what they wanted and keep what they wanted. Again, it was kind of a cop out, and it sounds like kind of similar. Not saying that Marvel Studios is copping out, but it sounds like that they are going to be going in that direction of we're going to use Secret Wars to change the things that we want to change. Like, we're going to have uh, Tony Stark come back, but he's going to be played by someone else. We're going to have Steve Rogers come back, but he's going to be played by someone else. We're going to pick and choose what movies happened and what didn't happen. Basically, the ones that didn't make money, we're going to pretend that never happened. It's going to be like, oh, the Fantastic Four have always been in this universe, and there's always been mutants in this universe, and oh, here's the new X-Men kind of a thing. Like, that's what it sounds like it's going to be doing. Again, not personally what I would want from a reboot. I would just want full-on reboot. Like, let's just start over from scratch. That way we can introduce Fantastic Four and X-Men in a more natural way than having all that baggage of, well, what counts? Like, what do they remember? What do they don't? You know, all that kind of thing. And also for the actors playing Tony Stark and Steve Rogers, I feel like it'd be a little less baggage that they have to deal with, where it's like, oh, no, you're not your own. You can't really make this character your own. You got to connect it to that guy. It's already hard enough following Chris Evans and RDJ, but then also to be like, and you have to be your history is attached to their character or their version of the character. It's like, that just feels like a lot to ask for people. Plus, it could get confusing for audiences of just like, okay, well, what counts, what doesn't. So I think it'd be better if they just started over from scratch. But that's my 2 cents. He also, Kevin Feige, talked about Blade and how it was announced in 2019 at Comic Con with Mahershala Ali taking the role of Blade, but it never came to fruition. He said, quote, "The first that it got with me was I flew to Atlanta and did a chemistry test with Mahershala. Sorry, I apologize. I did a costume in. Oh wait, no, that's not Kevin Feige. My bad. He said, quote, where is the quote? He said, quote, I feel like a gigantic loser and failure over the Doom Blade reboot. And I mean, yeah, I don't understand how this movie never got made. It feels like a slam dunk. It's a guy fighting vampires. Like how how hard does that have to be? And I mean, yes, it doesn't help that like the Wesley Snipes Blade movies, at least the first two, are very iconic, especially among comic book fans. And I mean, it doesn't. Wesley Snipes owns that role, so having anyone follow up. I mean, Ali is a good actor. It's not like you got just some no name off the street and was like, "Hey, you're going to be taking a role that Wesley Snipes had." It's like, no, I mean the guy has good acting chops. So I just don't know why they were never able to figure it out. And I mean, some of it may be that just their plans were changing so much in terms of what was going to come out and what they were building up to that they just didn't know, excuse me, where to fit in the Blade movie at all. So I think that's a lot of the reason why we never saw is they just couldn't. Besides, it sounds like they also just couldn't figure out a script, which again, I don't know how hard it is. Like, I'm not gonna say Blade has like hundreds and hundreds of comics to choose storylines from, but at the same time, it's like he does have some. And two, again, how hard is it? Just make a Blade movie or have him team up with like Moon Knight and Black Knight and do like a vampires and monsters hunter movie. Like make Van Helsing, but with Moon Knight and Blade. Like how how hard is that to do? And you could do it for cheap too. Like that, the cost mostly would probably just be paying the main two actors. Like I don't understand how this never got off the ground, and I do appreciate him being candid of like, man, I wish you're not a failure or loser, Kevin Feige, but man, I don't know how you fumbled the ball on this one, but I think this it's safe to say that this project is dead in the water. But speaking of projects that are not dead in the water, how's that for a transition? The Call of Duty movie obviously was announced a few months ago. Going to be directed by Peter Berg and written by Taylor Sheridan of Landman and Yellowstone fame. And we found out today via Variety that the Call of Duty movie is going to take place in the Modern Warfare universe and timeline. So that means characters like Captain Price, Ghost, and Soap might be in the movie. They might be the main characters of the movie. I feel like that's the only reason you would set it in that timeline. And I mean, it makes sense because that's probably the easier and cheaper way to do it because obviously with period pieces, they can be a little bit more expensive because you gotta find the older cars, you gotta make the older looking guns, and you have to build sets and stuff like that. So it makes sense. Plus, the Modern Warfare series has a new installment coming out this year, so it makes sense that with that being the newest Call of Duty coming out, that they would want to have the movie closer aligned to the newest release. I mean, I don't mind it. I don't mind the Modern Warfare games. The reboot, the series, the obviously the OG trilogy is great, and the first two games in the reboot trilogy were good. The third one, not so much. So it's not like I hate that timeline. It's just I thought it would have been much cooler to do like Black Ops, CIA, spy stuff. I think you could have really had a fun time with that. I'm still intrigued mostly by Taylor Sheridan being the one uh, writing the script, just because he does have talent and pull in Hollywood. So it's not like you're getting some writer that's just going to be run over by a committee of people from the game studio, movie studio that just be like, okay, I'll make the changes you want. Like that guy Sheridan can actually stand up to him and be like, do you know who I am? Kind of a thing. I don't think that you need to be questioning my judgment. So I'm excited about that, but it'll be interesting because again, I don't know how you differentiate this from just any other kind of war slash soldier movie, because like it's different when it's a game, because obviously you're playing it and you get to interact and be part of the story as opposed to just watching it take place for 2 hours on screen. But I'm going to open minded, and I mean I think if you make it for cheap, because you could make a movie like this for like 80 to 100 million dollars and have it look pretty good. If you could do that, like I think you could make a decent amount of money on this. So we'll see. I'm excited and intrigued by what they do. But moving on, because speaking of blowing things up in warfare, the Odyssey obviously came out this past weekend. I saw it. My review's up on my Substack. If you want to go take a look at that, I'd really appreciate it. I loved it. Spoilers. It was really good. Not Nolan's best movie in my opinion, but definitely one of his better ones. And it a lot of people seem to agree because it made a huge amount of money in the box office over the weekend. It made a $264 million worldwide, and it's his biggest box opening ever, with The Dark Knight Rises being 249 and The Dark Knight 198 million worldwide. I mean, I'm happy. Again, I never bought into the controversies that people were going on about online. I really think it was dumb to pick a Nolan movie of all things. And I think it just goes back to, it's like people just want good movies. People want good stories. I think that's where people in on. They're like, I don't care who's playing what. Just give me a well acted, well directed, and well written story that takes me and transports me into another world for 2 to, or in this case, 3 hours. And I mean, I'm happy. Again, I want more movies like this, because this movie did feel like a throwback movie to like something we would have gotten with like kind of, it reminded me of Pirates of the Caribbean and Lord of the Rings, where it's just you have that fantasy but it feels real and really transports you in that world, and there's not just a bunch of CGI and green screen just plastered on into your face. And I mean, it's kind of what the Dune movies have done too, where it's like obviously yeah, there's CG involved in that, but you also have a lot of practical effects where it's like they're actually wearing the suits that they're walking around in. They're walking around in an actual desert. Or in the case of here, they're on an actual longboat rowing in the middle of the ocean, rocking back and forth and acting while being filmed. So I'm really glad to see this. I'm glad to see this being rewarded. And again, it's kind of funny. You have the same people that are like, "Oh, nothing original is made anymore," and then something like this comes out, and it's like, "Oh, but it's bad and controversial and all that stuff." And again, I don't want to go into that. I go into that a little bit of in my review, but I think it's just, again, I'm glad to see that creativity and good filmmaking is being rewarded. So again, Nolan does it once again, and I mean, again, I just don't know where he goes from here, because it just feels like after every movie, it just is like, oh, how can you do what else can this man do? But he just seems to be having fun, and that's, I think that you really see it come on screen. So I'm happy about that. Moving on to a more business side of the movie industry. Obviously, Paramount and Warner Brothers have been working on getting their merger approved and everything, and that actually hit a snag this week, where a federal judge ordered a temporary halt of the merger, as they argued from, I believe, 12 different states. Again, not to get in the weeds too much, but argued that it would violate federal antitrust law, leading to higher prices and fewer movies and TV shows. And I mean, I can't argue with their logic, because I mean, we already have so few major movie studios that are independently owned. It's like Disney now owns Fox, and so really, as far as independent movie studios, if this doesn't go through, you really only have Disney, Universal, Warner Brothers, and Paramount as like the major ones. Like you have A24, but they're not nearly the size of a Disney or a Warner Brothers or a Paramount. And so you only have four left. So you take away one, again, that leaves three. And it's just kind of, all right, how long? Or Sony. Sorry, I forgot about them, but they're floundering. I mean, I other than Spider-Man, they really have got nothing. But so you would have only like four or five major studios left when we used to have like, granted, six or seven, but in an industry like this, that's major. Like, there's not going to be that many major movie studios. And so I could see their argument because it's like, okay, when this merges, what projects have priority? Warner Brothers or Paramount? Like, we're wondering, like, what happens to Paramount Plus or HBO Max? Like, do those get merged? Do they stay separate? Like, I get the concern there. And again, you can't really ever trust what a big gigantic corporation will promise to do. And again, I've always argued that it's like in the lesser of two evils, I was wanting Paramount to take Warner Brothers over Netflix. If I had to have a choice, I would rather have Paramount just because they are more invested in the movie side than Netflix is. Like again, the fact that it's news that Netflix is going to have Chronicles of Narnia be out for 45 days. That tells you all you need to know about how they feel about movies. So I understand why this is happening, and I'm interested to see what this comes out. I mean, there's a shot. I'm again depending on what palms get greased and everything like that. I could definitely see this maybe actually throwing a wrench in that because we are kind of getting to the point where there's not that many movie studios left, so you really can't have one studio owning another and not saying, okay, this is starting to become a monopoly. Like Disney's already kind of gotten there. Like I was surprised that the Fox merger went through. As a comic book fan, I was happy because it's like, oh, thank God now Marvel Studios has access to Fantastic Four and X-Men and Daredevil and all that. But I got the business concerns that came from that merger. So again, here it's like, yeah, maybe. I mean, the only other thing is like, okay, well, if Paramount doesn't buy Warner Brothers, what happens? Warner Brothers probably doesn't go under, I wouldn't think, but they would obviously have to downsize. But again, that's I not to get. I guess this is political, but I very much believe in the free market, and it's like, okay, if you fail, you fail. You don't get bailed out. You don't get helped. If you get acquired, then that's fine. But again, there does come a point here where it's like, okay, how many acquisitions is too much? And you have Paramount taking on all of Warner Brothers' debt and all that, so I could see this actually being a potentially big wrench. And the fact that you have like 12 states, obviously California is the one leading the charge because LA and everything like that. But I could definitely see this throwing a major wrench in there, and it's I could see this sinking the whole thing. In which case, it'll be interesting to see how what Warner Brothers does after this. Like, do they go back to Netflix? Because I feel like you would almost have the same arguments if Netflix bought Warner Brothers. But moving on to our last piece of news, and this isn't so much news as kind of a speculation part of the podcast, because obviously this weekend we have San Diego Comic-Con. It happens every year, and usually we get some big announcements. And really the big thing with this San Diego Comic-Con is that Marvel Studios is going to have a big Hall H panel Saturday evening, afternoon, depending on where you are. And I'm really intrigued for that. Obviously, I thought Doomsday would get the trailer drop there, but they already did that. So I imagine we might get like, okay, they'll probably show a scene or two from Doomsday because that's kind of what they've done in the past. Is like, here's the trailer for everyone to see, and then for the special people in Hall H, here's a little, extra scene or two that we've already filmed and finished editing that you can watch. So I'm sure we'll get that. Rumors are we'll probably get a full X-Men cast announcement I can definitely see that happening. I mean, you already have Kevin Feige talking about X-Men and kind of hyping them up after Secret Wars. I imagine we'll also get a trailer for the Vision Quest TV show that comes out in October. My guess is we'll get a trailer for that. And then as far as anything else, I don't really. Maybe we get an announcement of like if there's another movie coming out next year besides Secret Wars. Like maybe they're like, oh, and by the way, I don't think so, but maybe we'll get some talk. Probably get some talk about Daredevil season, Born Again season 3. Maybe we get a teaser for that. I highly doubt it because they're still filming. Um, and maybe an announcement on any other like one shots that they'll do, kind of like Punisher. That would be my guess. So I think the main thing is going to be though X-Men. I think that's where we're going to get like here's the cast, here's the release date, here's the name of the movie kind of a thing. That would be my guess. And then the only other big one is Lanterns is going to have a panel for DC. Obviously DC is not going to have a presence this year cuz Gunn is busy finishing filming with Man of Tomorrow. I do think they should have a panel next year though. Like I think they really need to start doing some of the fan stuff to really get people hyped up and interested. But so with Lanterns, I imagine they'll probably show people there the first two or maybe the first episode. Probably get another trailer since that comes out next month. But really, that's Marvel Studios is the big thing that I'm going to be looking at. Is just okay, what are we getting? What are we showing? And again, I think the big thing is going to be X-Men cast reveal. So I'm excited for that. I look forward to it. And obviously, whatever gets announced, I will talk about next week on the podcast in the news section. But that's all the news that I have for this week. Again, lots to talk about. And there'll probably be a good amount to talk about next week. But now let's move into our paid subscribers questions. And again, if you want to submit a question to the show, just upgrade your subscription on Substack and you'll be able to ask me any question that you want. What my favorite color is, what my favorite food is, why I like one movie more than another, anything you want. But this week's question is, with all the current buzz surrounding the casting and production of Scooby-Doo Origins, and as a massive fan of the classics, what is one cartoon franchise from your youth or beyond that you think is completely sacred and should never be touched by modern Hollywood? This is a two-parter, so I'll answer that first. So the first one I would say is Archie, and this has already been kind of touched by modern Hollywood with that awful CW Riverdale show, but I think Archie is one of those where it's just like you can add more depth to the characters, but I don't think putting it in a more grounded, gritty, or realistic setting works for that because part of it is just kind of having that old-fashioned sensibilities and humor. Like one example of how this was done well to more modernize Archie is there was a Archie series that was released by Mark Waid as the writer, and he's done a bunch of stuff for Marvel and DC. And basically it was like, well, what if we wrote Archie comics but for set in modern times? So like Archie has a cell phone and he plays video games and everything, but one of the first things he talked about in the little letter he included in the first volume of the series was he said that his philosophy was do no harm. So he's like, I'm not going to have like, Betty worried about getting a positive pregnancy test or Archie and Jughead doing, hard drugs or something like that, which is Riverdale went into some weird stuff like that from what I'm told. I heard the synopsis and it was like, no thanks. But in the series, they did explore some things where it's like, Jughead, the reason he's an outcast is because his family used to be rich, and so all the kids used to hang out with him because he had money and stuff. But then his parents lost it in like a pyramid scheme, and so Archie was the only one that stayed true to his friend throughout that time, and so that's why they're kind of best buds. And Jughead kind of has a little bit of a antisocial chip on his shoulder, and it's like, Veronica, the reason she likes Archie is because he's the first guy to not care about her money and just treat her as just this normal high school girl. And Reggie, the reason he's a jerk is because his parents don't pay attention to him at home. They don't give him any affection or time. And so he's acting the way he is to get any and all attention that he can. So it was interesting where it's like they added depth to the characters, but it still felt like the Archie comics you always knew and loved. So that's one where I'm like, I don't want any cartoons or adult reimaginings of Archie anymore, please. Like, just leave that alone. But the second part of the question was, which one do you think is actually secretly perfect for a gritty modern live action reimagining? That one was a tough one to answer because, man, yeah, I had a hard time thinking of what already had been done and what hasn't been done. But the one I came up to might be interesting, but I thought the Flintstones. I think in the right hands, doing a live action Flintstones where maybe it can still be in like a more adult sitcom form. And again, not being crude or anything, but it's like having the Flintstones tackle more modern problems, but from the Flintstones perspective, because they kind of did that a little bit in the Flintstones show, where it was one of those where it's like there was funny stuff for the kids, like Fred getting his head bonked on by a dinosaur whacking him on the head with a boulder, or Barney dropping something on his foot. But then you also had those more funny jokes, sitcom jokes for the adults. I mean, and all that. So it's like, I think that could work in a modern setting, and you can kind of make it like an old fashioned, three camera sitcom. But again, just set it in the Flintstones time period, and just have them kind of do satire of modern life. I think that could be kind of interesting in the right hands. You could really get something fun out of that. But that's all the questions we had for today. Again, thank you so much for submitting those questions. I always enjoy reading and thinking up of answers to come back with. I love doing it. But before we get out of here, what I'm watching, obviously, I just watched Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey, and the review is up on the Substack right now. It's not, I wouldn't say it's maybe minor spoilers for a 3,000-year-old story. There's not much to spoil there, but I also don't go like beat for beat in the plot. But I enjoyed it. I highly recommend it. Read my review if you haven't already. Obviously, I'm still watching X-Men 97. I haven't watched the newest episode yet, but I plan to, and same with House of Dragon. Been enjoying those. And that's really all I've had time to watch right now. But again, I've been enjoying those shows, and I can't wait to see where especially X-Men 97 goes next. Although I've been enjoying House of Dragon as well. But that's all I got for today. Next week's article, be on the lookout for that. It's going to be breaking down the Spider-Man comic book storyline, The Other. It seems to be the major inspiration for the new movie, Spider-Man Brand New Day. So be on the lookout for that. I'll go into fully in depth on what they did in the comic and how I think it could be translated into the movie, who I think Sadie Sink might actually be playing. Please God, I keep saying it, please God, don't let her be Jean Grey. Jean Grey does not belong in a Spider-Man movie. They barely interact in the comics. So having her show up in a big Spider-Man movie just seems so out of left field. But so be on the lookout for that. And as always, thank you so much for listening and your support. And I'll be back with another podcast next week. Bye.